It could soon get a whole lot harder to find a holiday home in Byron Bay, with councils in the tourism hotspots around the country watching with interest as the Byron Shire Council pushes ahead with plans for a 60-day annual cap on short-term holiday letting in an effort to ease the housing crisis. Bruce Mackenzie has been following this story for us and he joins us now with the details. Morning to you, Bruce. So first of all, let's set the scene. So what is the situation with short-term holiday lets and what they've been doing to the rental market in Byron Bay?
Yeah, well, Madeline, for reasons that are probably fairly obvious if you look at what's behind me, at certain times of the year, thousands of people want to come to this place and they are willing to pay top dollar for somewhere to stay. So if you own an investment property, that can be a fairly lucrative business. But what that means is there are fewer permanent rentals on the market. So when those visitors arrive, they expect someone to be there to make their coffee or pour their beer. But if you're working in retail or hospitality, it's really difficult to find somewhere affordable to live in this part of the world. And that's the problem the council's confronting.
Yeah, and it seems that council really didn't have to look too far to see examples of how this crisis is hurting local residents.
Yeah, it sure didn't. Actually, one of the local councillors, Salma Balson, was telling me this week that since the floods last year, she has had to move her family 24 times. And a bunch of those occasions were because the place where she was staying had a pre-existing holiday booking. Also at the council meeting I attended recently, one of the people that spoke there was a woman called Sarah Jane McGrath. Now, she's been living in her van for the last 3 years since she lost her job during the COVID pandemic, and she had some interesting things to say about the situation.
If you don't have a job and you can't make ends meet, then you're unable to afford the increased cost for either a room or a house. We've got a lot of hospitality around here. Those people are now having to leave because they cannot afford the houses because they're getting less than 20 hours in their shifts per week, and the cost of living goes up and the wage does not.
She really just sets out the difficulties there so eloquently, Bruce. Now, the Byron Council initially wanted a 90-day cap, didn't they? But then the state government set up an independent panel to recommend that 60-day limit, which is what they're going to try out. What's the tourism industry had to say about it?
Well, there was an industry lobby that mounted a pretty aggressive campaign about the idea of any sort of cap being imposed on short-term holiday letting, but that approach seems to have tempered recently. I had a chat to a bloke called Colin Hussey, who's the CEO of a business called A Perfect Stay, and he seemed to think that the time was right for a sensible compromise.
What we do want to do is address the affordable housing issue in the region. So restrict the number of full-time homes down, but let them do a 365. But anybody else that wants to do it, 60 days is a good number to stop them moving across into full-time holiday letting. And I think that's probably a really good compromise.
So that's Colin Hussey. He's a spokesman for the short-term holiday letting industry. And Madeline, I should point out that the council will be able to consider exemptions on a case-by-case basis. No one's suggesting that this will be a blanket 60-day annual cap on short-term holiday letting, but what it is designed to do is to get some of those homes in the more residential areas back into the permanent rental market, and it's now up to the council to convince the state government that it can implement and manage that system.
Well, there will be a lot of people right across the country, I imagine, really watching how it all plays out there in Byron. Also, I need to point out it's 12 degrees up there right now, Bruce, and you're just wearing a shirt and to give us that gorgeous selling Byron for us as though it's in beautiful sunshine, so well done to you.
I wish I was in the water, it'd be warmer.
It would be. All right, good on you, Bruce. Thanks.
Yeah, it does look divine. No wonder so many people want to spend time there. We've been getting comments from you about this situation. Tom says that he lived in Rye until recently, and He and almost the entire community are being pushed out by prices doubling and tripling in rentals over the past 3 years. He'd spent money saving for a house but was priced out of the market. His partner's hospitality business can barely find staff, as is the same for all the small businesses there, because you don't have people living in the area. He's saying it's a total disaster. People are being pushed out of the lives that they've set up for years.
Yeah, Rye is on the Mornington Peninsula down in Victoria, where they're really struggling with this as well. Victoria, the state government has just recently introduced a land tax. They're increasing land tax if people own 2 or more properties. So they're trying to kind of manage that from a state level as well. But there are overseas jurisdictions that have done quite a bit too.
Yeah, well, Amsterdam has a 30-day cap. Paris has a 120-day cap. Munich has set a limit of 8 weeks per year. When you talk about the Mornington Peninsula, just to give you a bit of perspective though, it's interesting that some councils in popular places have less than 500 Airbnbs that have been registered as Airbnbs. Well, the Mornington Peninsula Shire has an estimated 5,500 Airbnbs.
That's so huge, and as we just heard from Tom there, people just can't get a short-term rental.
The flip side, though, we have also heard from you saying, well, those visitors and tourists keep the economy ticking along as well. There's a whole lot of jobs that are created because of that.